Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed, and in this deep dive presentation, I'm going to show you how Creadev empowers anyone to develop and publish commercial AA and III quality games, animations, and simulations. This is the main menu of Creadev. From here, you're able to develop your own projects or discover what others have done on the Discover store. So starting with develop, this is my list of projects that I've created previously. I can select any project, open, test, rename, duplicate, or delete, and I can create a new project. By doing that, I'm going through a simple wizard where I'm choosing the kind of project that I'm creating. These are merely categories for the kind of experience, but it's the same UI and UX for all of them. So for now, I'll choose that it's a game that I'm creating. And next, I'm going to call the project, name it Creative Quest, for example. And then I can choose the player mode. It can be single player, but the goal is to eventually add multiplayer, PvP, and PvE. Then I can choose the age rating for my project. And the main thing that this dictates is going to be the blood and gore in the game. So let's keep it at 16 at this point, and then choose a business model, which can be either free or premium. So with a free project, I'll click on next. And now I get to choose from the available theme packs that ships with Creadev. The idea is that you're able to mix and match the contents of these theme packs, and they are comprehensive. They contain pre-coded elements like different kinds of transportation methods, buildings, weapons, vehicles, fonts, and music that correspond to each theme. So I'll choose a pirate theme for now. I'll click on next. And then for the camera, I'm going to choose one of the available presets. So these are popular video gaming presets. I'll choose the over-the-shoulder far camera perspective, but then I can change all of that during editing the project itself. And by the way, everything you see is always going to be a two-way door decision, so you can always change anything at any point. Next, I'll choose the visual style for my project. So the standard is going to be traditional 3D graphics, but you can also make your game look cel shaded, hand painted, oil painted, and also like different kinds of retro options with different classical and stylized as well as pixelated options. So for now, I'll choose standard. And then in this screen, we're able to choose the kind of gameplay genres that we want to target. So if I select none and then choose that my game is going to be an adventure game, so kind of like a walking simulator, but I also want to have some platforming, some stealth, and action elements. So here I'm choosing the kind of the top level genres, but I'm also able to drill inside each one of them and choose the particular gameplay mechanics that I want from that particular genre. So for example, in the role-playing genre, I can choose to have all of them except maybe having a minimap or a map and rely on environmental storytelling instead. I can choose select all, and this would be kind of similar to having a pizza with all the toppings. Is this a good idea? Nobody knows, but it's up to you to choose the exact mix that will actually make your game stand out. So for now, I'll choose select all. And by the way, you're able to override that per level and then within each zone in every level. Next, the project is now created, and here is Creative Quest. So I'll choose this particular project. I'll click on open. And now you can see that the project is open and it's empty. So I'm going to start by adding a level. And the levels in Creative are based on starting points. So these starting points are not templates. They're meant to be procedurally generated worlds based on biomes, so flora and fauna. On the left, we have miscellaneous lands. So lands will be different kinds of forests, deserts, and mountains. But also in the future, we're going to be having different locations on planet Earth, as well as different planets, black holes, and other places in space. And simulation. This will be where we house the kind of industrial training, galleries, museums, etc. So for now, under miscellaneous, here we can see all of the available biomes in the current version of Creative. So these biomes are ordered based on elevation. So from underwater to different seas, different kinds of islands, woods, forests, and even above the cloud. So for now, I'll choose a tropical island and I'll call it level 1. with that created, here is my level. And again, I'm able to open it, test it, rename, duplicate, delete, and I can work with a team and collaborate on the project. So if I click on the team panel, I'm able to invite other members based on their email or their username, given that they have an account in Creative. And then once they join and accept my invitation, I'm able to assign them specific levels. And so when they are working on those levels, the levels will be locked until they're done with editing. Then they will be available again. So they'll only be able to edit the levels that I, as the project creator, I'm giving them permission to. So with that done, I will select a level, I will click on open, and let's see what happens. Notice that it took less than a second to generate the entire world. This is a map as big as the map in Red Dead Redemption 2 by default. And you can make it smaller or you can make it infinite. Here you can see that Creative generated the shoreline, the water effects, the underwater caustics, the reflections, the diffractions, the shorelines, and all of the physical properties. So the ripples and waves are all kind of controlled. And I'm able to control all of this through a single toolbox button. And in Toolbox, you can see that we have different categories. So world, landscape, objects, gameplay, and entities. Underworld, we have sun, weather, sea, and rendering. So if I go to sea, I can enable or disable the sea globally. I can control the sea level, can change the water colors. So is it Caribbean blue versus Red Sea blue? What's the kind of look and feel that I want to have for it? And then I'm able to control things like waviness, so how violent the waves are going to be, as well as the ability to change the wave speed or make it still, and even enable or disable the underwater caustic effects. You can always undo any parameter in Creative. So you're encouraged to experiment and see what works best for you. I can also hide this toolbox by just pressing Tab at any point. For navigation, I'm using WASD, but before that, you have to right-click on the mouse button to look around. So the combination of right-clicking and then holding AWSD, I'm able to use E for going up and then Q for moving down. I can use the mouse wheel to increase the speed of movement in the environment or decrease it. So this way, the combination of all the previous controls allows me to control the scene navigation and go to any particular location. Here you can see that the vegetation stretches as far as the eye can see. I'm able to control things like, for example, if I'm looking at the sun, here you can see J.J. Abrams approved lens flare effects that I can control the intensity of. I can fly through the clouds to show that they're actually volumetric clouds, and we'll see how to adjust all of that later. And then I'm able to zoom in on any random point in the scene. And by doing that, notice that we retain the level of detail in the environment. So here you can see the moss details, the gusts of wind and blowing wind intensities with varying different levels of intensities. And I can control all of that as well. Now, flying back to the shore, I'll go to one particular location. So here, for example, if I want to control the overall generation of the environment, I can go to the toolbox and then under landscape, terrain, I'm able to control if this scene is going to be infinite or limited size. And if it is a limited size, I'm able to control the size of the scene itself. So it can be as small or as large as I want it to be. I can control things like vertical scale, offset, large and small noise, and this will allow me to basically get variations in the generation itself to get a general look and feel. And then I can fine tune the terrain sculpting later on, as we'll see later on. Now, going back to the world environment, let's say that I wanted to change the overall look and feel of the stubble. I'll go to world and then sun, and here I'm able to control things like time of day, for example. So if I set it to be a sunset, but then change the rotation to a specific angle, now we have an epic looking sunset environment. And I can change things like different sun intensities, sun shafts, volumetrics, and even animate the time of day. So if I'm in a survival game and I want the actual time of day to correspond to particular day lengths and night lengths and minutes, I can enable this toggle and then control the amounts here. So let's set the time of day to be at night. And by doing that, let's clear the weather quickly. So here you can see the moon, and I'm able to go to the night category and control things like star intensity. So here it's an intensity of 0, and now I'm setting it to maximum, and control things like, for example, the moon size, the moon brightness, the moon phase, if I wanted to have a crescent look, as well as nebulas in the environment. I can add auroras as well in northern lights, and this is how you're able to control everything in Creative. Now I can go back to the previous time of day condition. So let's set it at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Now let's say that I wanted to control the weather in general. Under the weather tab, you have multiple modes. First of all, I have the kind of sky mode. By default, we default to volumetric clouds, and volumetric clouds are these kind of self-shadowed, high-quality clouds, cinematic level of quality, and you're able to control the cloud intensities later on. But for now, I can change the volumetric clouds to be 2D, so these are lighter to render, but they retain kind of they're flatter looking than the volumetric ones, and I even have an option for a static texture. So even though this is the kind of the cheapest one, it still is high fidelity, and you're able to change the time of day, and notice that it retains modality. So you're able to kind of modulate all of the sky texture itself and still retain an artistic look that is consistent with the dynamic one. So going back to 230, and then for weather, I'm going to go back to volumetric. Let's set the preset to see other options. So there's partly cloudy, there's foggy, so that kind of Silent Hill look and feel. There is overcast, rain, that is light, medium rain, thunderstorms, and with thunderstorms you can see that we have different lightning effects, different water droplets kind of accumulating on the lens itself, as well as sandstorms of different intensities, and snow. And with snow we have light, medium, and even a full-blown blizzard. So notice that with snow accumulation, there's actually proper accumulation on everything in the scene. So not only the rocks in the environments, but also all of the vegetation, all of the the different grass assets. And this will apply even to objects that you import to this environment. So you don't have to write any shaders or write any code to enable that. It will be enabled by default, and you can disable it where needed. And here you can see the frosting happening on the edges of the lens as well. So let's go back to partly cloudy. The idea with Creative is that whenever we give you like a preset, we allow you to control parameters to control the look and feel. So if you go down here under clouds category, you're able to control the coverage. So it is partly cloudy, but how cloudy is it? And then if you want to have wisps, you want to have cloud height, so the elevation of the clouds themselves, and then things like cloud speed. And with that, you can see the actual movement in the environment. It can undo, and it can even disable cloud shadows if you want it. So it depends on the look that you have in the game. You can enable things like auroras, rainbows, control the effect of heat haze if you wanted, then change the lens flare types between different ones, rain droplets, and snow frost. So let's say that we wanted to create a simple kind of level design practice in this environment. So if you played games like Uncharted or Tomb Raider, usually around the middle point of those games, you will be stranded on a similar tropical island in the middle of nowhere. The goal is to retrieve, say, a golden idol from a temple ruin in the middle of the jungle. So to create that scenario, I will go we'll start from the end. Let's say that we wanted to create an ancient Trojan environment in this location. I'm going to Objects, through the toolbox, Objects, Buildings, and here I can see the pirate buildings available, and these are showing pirate buildings because I selected the pirate theme to be the dominant one. But remember, in Creative, you're always able to switch at any point between any of the available themes. So here, through clicking on this theme selection button, I'm switching from the current pirate one to an ancient theme. And by doing that, if I go back to Objects Buildings, here you can see that the context has changed to show me ancient looking buildings. So now I can drag and drop any of these buildings. And by doing that, you can see that the vegetation gets automatically cleared around the place where I'm placing the buildings. So now I can select any of these buildings and then move it up, for example. And with that, you can see that it's actually terraforming the terrain beneath it. And this allows you to kind of, place buildings on slopes. So it makes it easier and more integrated into the level without additional kind of artist intervention. So with that, let's add something like a monument or landmark behind the ancient ruins. So I'll go to landscapes and then under terrain from auto, I'm going to choose to manual. Here I'm able to control things like different brush functions. So for example, raise and lower terrain in different brush selections, can lower, flatten, paint specific textures, also remove vegetation around the way. And what I wanted to show here is the height map option. So these can be used for mountains and hills. By just dragging them into the scene, I'm able to select it, move it around, and then through the Edit Details button, I'm able to control its properties. So for example, I can control the scale, the fade, increase the height a little bit, and now I have a mountain shape. Now, I'm able to control the grass, the slope material. So is it rocky, grassy, sandy? And then based on that, I can simply Control C and Control V and copy and duplicate the different mountains. So now I have two kind of mountains. And I can change the overall properties of them by changing the entire height map to one of the available selections. So let's say that I wanted to have a crater or a specific type of terraformation. I'm able to select it, click select, and now you can see that it's applied, and I can control its properties again and get a different look. So now if I go back to the beginning of the level and look up, here you can see that as a player, I know where I'm supposed to be heading. And based on that, you're going to see the ancient ruins at the bottom of this landscape environment. Now, let's say that you wanted to control the density of this jungle environment. Let's say that the trees are too dense for your liking. You're able to go again to Toolbox, Landscapes, and then under that, we'll go to Flora. And with Flora, you can see that you have control over every single layer in the environment. So from trees, rocks, grass, and foliage. And then for each one of them, you have control over properties like densities, altitude, range that they're allowed above the sea level. There's the view distance, following the ground slope, and spawn angles. So let's say that I wanted to have less trees in this environment. I'll set it to 0.1. Notice now that it reduced the intensity of all of the trees in the environment while keeping all of the other vegetation assets as they were. And it kept all my previous modifications as well. So now let's say that you wanted to do something more drastic, like for example, change the entire biome. So I can go to Landscape, Biome, and then here I'm able to switch to any of the existing biomes. So if I choose Asian Grove, for example, here you can see that it changed everything to sakura trees and bamboo trees. And if I selected a Mediterranean one, for example, now it's using olive trees and pine trees, as well as the grass and vegetation assets that matches that biome. So going back to the tropical rainforest. Now let's say that I wanted to create a path that leads from the ancient ruins to the beginning. Here I can go to Toolbox, Terrain, and this time I'm going to choose the Road tool and simply draw a curved spline by clicking and dragging through the environment and then double clicking at the end. Now Creadev creates a path, but this path is currently narrow. So I'll just select any of the points and then under Edit, I'm able to increase the width. So let's say that I wanted to set it to 1500. Now you can see it's a wider path and I can choose any of the points and simply move them around. And as I do that, Creadev readjusts the vegetation to reflect, to clear it along this path. So this way I'm able to control exactly how the curve will be. Now with that, I can start building a pirate town in this location. So I'll switch from the ancient theme back to the pirate theme. I'll go to Toolbox, Objects, Buildings, and now I'm going to start adding some buildings here. So here are some towers, adding a town building, and then let's say one of the shacks. So in this environment, let's say that I wanted to populate it with characters. I can go to entities, and then I have a crowd zone. So by clicking that, I'm able to shift and scroll to adjust the size of the area where the characters are going to be, and then select that, and then simply in the edit panel, I'm able to choose how many characters to spawn. So let's say that I wanted to spawn 25 characters. I'll select that, click on spawn, and then if I enter inside here, you can see that it spawned piratey crowds. Because I'm on the pirate theme, I can choose the crowd zone from the hierarchy and delete it. And now if I press play, you can see that I'm in play mode. So this is what the player will experience. I'm able to use a drone-like control system and fly around. And here you can see that the characters are walking through the environment. And the goal is to have them, avoiding each other, avoiding the buildings, and basically adding life to it. Now let's say that I wanted to add a player character. So I'll go to Toolbox, Entities, and then add the player start. And in this location, I can control what the character will look like. So by default, it's going to be a pirately looking character, but I can switch it to any of the other pirates, or I can choose one of the creatures. So I can play as a heavily misunderstood zombie pirate, and in which case, if I press G, now you can see that the character itself is applied, so you can use this for things like role reversal. And I'm able to switch to a character from a totally different theme pack. So here, for example, I'm choosing the fantasy theme, and then I'm choosing a kind of a Templar looking character, and based on that, if I press play, and here I'm choosing the camera, obviously, so that this is the default that I selected earlier, but I can switch, and I can allow the player to switch. If I add a starting item, so this is the inventory, I'll add a starting item, and that could be something like a sword, for example, and then choose the amount and the durability. And with that, I'll press play. And now you can notice that I have a high quality character controller. So this is a controller that has motion matching, motion capture, as well as the ability to kind of, walk and run and sprint in different gates. You are able to jump and crouch, and all of these are abilities that I've added earlier. And you can see as I'm walking through the environment, you can see that I'm leaving footprints, and if I'm running, then dirt is going to be kicking up. I'm able to walk through the water, and as I do that, you can see that I'm causing ripples and waves, and if I go deep enough, I'm able to swim. And you can also swim underwater, and this will have underwater kind of blurring as well as the sound pitch change. So now I can press tab and open the inventory screen. So here you can see my inventory. I can select any item, press Q to inspect, and I'm also able to drop items on the ground. I have a crafting system, so all of these different crafting and items are available. There is a quest log that I can have primary quests and secondary quests. There's a skill tree system where you're able to tie abilities to specific skill trees, and then a map that is dynamically generated based on the environment that you placed, and you can zoom in and out. Now, let's say that I wanted to add some elements in the environment for traversal. So for example, next to the character, I can add some animals. So going back to the design mode, I can click on the toolbox, and then under gameplay, characters, I'll switch to animals. And animals in Creative comes in are tied to biomes. So the idea is that you're going to have three kinds. There are domestic animals, cats, dogs, chicken, and you can place them around. They won't be running away from the player, but they will just be wandering. There are prey animals like deers that you can place and you can hunt them, and there are predators that will be attacking you, so wolves, tigers, etc. And then there are ways for transportation like the horse. So in this example, for example, I'm able to go to the horse itself. You can see that we have the kind of the deformation of the muscles on the character. We have the snow buildup and the sweat, and I'm able to change the properties of this character. So for example, I can change the skin type to be different. Let's say that for now I'll keep it for realistic, and I'll press play and see what happens. So now we can see like the domestic animals running around, and I'm able to ride the horse. As I'm doing that, the horse itself has different gaits. I'm able to walk, run, sprint. I'm able to jump, and yes, even swim. And you can see like the horse is actually able to swim in this environment. Now, if I go back and change the properties of the horse, so I'll open the details panel, and I'm going to choose the skin type to be white, so an Arabian kind of looking horse breed, and then I want to have a horn, and I want the horn to be straight or curved, and then the horse can fly. And because it can fly, I'm able to choose a color for the wing, so let's say that's white. Now if I press play and I walk to the horse, able to jump on it, and now you can obviously see like when you're walking versus sprinting, there is a field of view shift that happens, and you can press Y to be able to fly in this environment. So if you're going to give the player such a huge world to explore, you might as well allow them to navigate it properly. Now, another mean of navigation is using things like accessories. So again, going back, let's press play. And now I'm going to press the tilde key, and this is a debug menu where I can give the player items just to experiment with. So I will add we've already added the sword, so I'll add a campfire, and I will also add a wing jetpack. So here's a wing jetpack. Now if I press F, this will show me a radial menu, so I can press the sword, for example, and here I'm able to fight with the sword, and you can see that it's actually using a light animation set that's suitable for this Arabian looking sword. If this was a medieval heavy sword, or if it was a katana, then it will be a different animation set. I can also place buildable environments. So here, for example, I'm placing campfire. I can rotate it, and if it's a valid location, it will be white, like a proper color. Otherwise, it's going to be red. And by placing it, I'm able to walk through it. It will give me heat, and I'm able to open it and basically start cooking using the ingredients that I can get from the environment or from animals that I prey, that I hunt. And then I'm also able to equip an item, like for example this medieval looking wing jetpack, and I'm able to press Y, and now as a player I'm able to fly through this environment as I please. And if I drop in from a medium environment, from a medium distance, you can see that I'm getting some damage, but then I'm able to kind of continue navigating. And I can unequip any of the items. There is also foot IK, so as I'm walking on uneven terrain, the character is going to be placing the feet properly, and then I'm able to also jump and traverse the whole environment. So if I go to this location, for example, because I enabled the ability to climb in the environment, I can go here and jump and walk on the different environmental parts. Now, let's say that we wanted to add an action list to control what happens upon certain conditions being met. So for example, let's say that I wanted to add a trigger zone in this location. So here is an action list that I've added. Upon entering this action list, I want the character to execute one or more actions. These can be things like, for example, opening a different level, causing a delay, playing an audio clip, teleporting in the environments, camera effects such as camera fades and camera shakes, a user interface element, so UI or tutorial or notifications, and there's even object manipulation, so I can spawn different enemies and characters and buildings, move, rotate, and scale, as well as triggering other volumes. So let's say that I wanted to create kind of an open world style UI element. So I'll say it's a primary notification. I'll set it to style 3, and then for the header, I'm going to say new location discovered. And then I'll pick a font. This font is going to be a piratey looking font from the pirate environment. And then I'm able to type the main body text. So it's going to be Bay of Pirates. And I'll choose a header color, which will be blue. And now if I press play, I want to show this trigger in play mode, so that just to know where I'm going to step into. And by pressing play, I can see it in front of me. And as I walk through it, here you can see the UI element showing new location discovered, Bay of Pirates. So I didn't write any code, but I did cause the action to happen, and I did control how it should behave and look. Now I can manipulate the look of the environment more by changing things like, for example, material colors. So let's take this building, for example. I'm able to, let's say that I wanted to change the material here. I have a material library that ships with Creative. I can control things like, the different collections. So bricks, wood, metals, and then under bricks, I'm able to control, just drag and drop any material from the panel to the building. And here you can see it. And I can do things like add decals. So I can go to entities, effects, decals, and now I'm able to place a decal and notice how it takes the shape of the building, and I'm able to scale up and down and control the color and look and feel of the material itself. And I can add things like fire, for example. So I can go to fire category, and then let's say that we wanted to add the fire in this location. I just drag and drop, and here's the fire element added. Now for audio, I'm able to add entities, media, and then I can add an audio clip. So here I'm able to add an audio, and with this container, I'm able to edit the details panel. I'll choose that it plays on start. It could be a 3D sound, so this would be like something like a fire effect that I added. I can place a fire audio that will only play around that fire particle, but here, since it's a music clip, I want it to be playing all the time and looping. And now I can choose an audio clip. And here you can see that within the pirate theme, I have music, a library of ambient sound, SFX, and speech that are all pirate related. And I can choose any of the music clips, and I can select it or preview it. And I'm also able to go to storage and upload my own audio clips. And by the same token, you can do it for models, for buildings. And now I selected this audio clip. And when we enter play mode the next time, we're going to see it. So let's press play. And by doing that, here you can hear the audio playing the music track. One thing to note is that you're also able to change the camera perspective. So by default, this is the over-the-shoulder camera that I selected, but I also am able to change to Gears of War style over-the-shoulder close camera. Here you can see like the detailing on the character itself, so the physically based particles, the cloth simulation, the physically based materials and the cloth simulation. I'm also able to switch to first-person immersive kind of first-person full body awareness, as well as classical third-person. There's isometric, so this is kind of like the Diablo style isometric controls. There's top-down, so this is the classic Metal Gear and the first Grand Theft Auto style of cameras. There is side-scroller, so left and right moving, kind of similar to the first Prince of Persia. And then back to third-person. Now for the look and feel of the level, I'm able to change everything uniformly. So for example, I can go to Toolbox, and then Underworld, Rendering, I can switch to the post-processing effect. So by default, Creative starts with a post-processing effect or preset that looks cinematic. It's meant to look like modern kind of action adventure games. So you can control things like bloom, vignettic, chromatic aberration, contact shadows, but also you're able to do things like lens distortion, for example. So the fish eye look and feel, found camera footage, can increase the camera dirt intensity, the lens effects, as well as things like halation. So with halation, you can control the light seeping through the shadows. So the intersection between light and shadow, you can control the intensity of that. You can soften and even use things like compression. So if you wanted to get that early 90s VHS look and feel, you can do that. You can add grunge and film damage, as well as noise grain intensity, and even control things like black bars, so ultra widescreen look and feel for your game if that's what you want. And you can also switch to just a clear preset that disables everything, and now it has a kind of a unique look and feel that's kind of like early 2005 PS2 looking games. So there's zero post-processing, or you can mix and match, and it's up to you to choose exactly how you want your game to look like. Then under color correction, I'm able to switch between different color presets. So these are cinematic color grading options. You can make your game look a particular way, matrix green, matrix blue, something like Mad Max, or even a strong sepia tone. So you can control the intensity of each of these effects, as well as things like exposure, contrast, and saturation. Then you can change the entire rendering style. So from standard, which is what we've been using this whole time, to something like cell shaded. So cell shaded will make it look like a kind of hand-drawn look and feel for the characters and for the environments. There is oil painting, so more painterly look and feel. There's pencil sketches. There's a classical retro CGA, kind of the blue, the magenta and cyan color scheme of monitors of the 80s. There's pixelized look and feel. There's toon shading. So toon shading will make it look kind of like a cartoony look and feel for the environment. So it's pseudo 2D, and then you couple that with the 2.5D side-scroller perspective, and you get a hand-drawn look. There is classical looks as well as chalk, hand-drawn, and even graph paper. So with graph paper, you can see like the grid pattern. So if you want your game to play this way, you're able to do that. So I press and play, and here you can see I'm playing in this perspective. Okay, so going back to the standard environment, I'm also able to add, to import specific models. So for example, I can go to entities and then add model this time. And by selecting the model, I can edit the details panel and select the file. And this time I'm going to choose a file from my local storage. So I'll click on upload, and I'm choosing one of the scenes that I have. And this is a scene that I got from Daz. So this is the Daz Marketplace assets. Now the file is uploaded to my server space, and here's the scene. I can select it, and with doing that, now it is going to be loaded into the scene. So here you see, here's the model. So it's kind of like a sci-fi environment. Now this got exported as an FBX file from Daz and then imported here as an FBX. We also support GLB. So here, for example, in the scene, notice that it automatically set up all of the materials in the environment. The trees that you see are low poly trees, so the scene is a bit kind of old, so you're able to select anything in the scene. So for example, these particular trees, and you can delete them, and instead of them, you can add things that come from Creadev itself. So if I go to landscape flora, can go to manual, and here you see the vegetation assets that comes with Creadev. So if I add this tree here, you can see that it's a high fidelity tree and it reacts to wind and all these things. So if I go to world, weather, and then wind intensity, here you can see it more blowing. So you can do things like replacing the content this way. Now for the environment, you can see now it has global illumination, it has reflections, and all of the items are actually intact. So for example, I can set a trigger that upon entering it will open the gate, and it also has a kind of audio control. So you can control, for example, if it's raining, it's gonna be raining outside but not inside. Same thing for water accumulation and snow. So now in this environment, I can change things like, again, the materials. So instead of this wood material, I can open the material library and drag, let's say this time it's a metal or concrete. Let's say it's concrete, and then drag this concrete here. And now you can see that the new texture has been applied to this location. So this is how we import and manipulate the environments through external files. Now, let's say that I'm done with this environment. I'm happy with the flow, the way that it starts and you finish. You can add enemies. So for example, here I can go to gameplay and then characters, and then under that you have different types of NPCs using different weapons. So this will be streamlined over time, but you have different kind of crowds, brawlers, archers, melee, even mage, so spell casting enemies, on sword fighting. So let's add a sword fighting enemy, and this is a pirate captain that I'm going to be adding, and here's me. So by just selecting that the archetype is an NPC with a sword, it selected a random looking character from the environment, and then I can change how this character looks. So let's press play, and now I'll equip my sword, and then if this character sees me, I'm able to start fighting, lock in on the character itself, so get close to it, and this way we're able to, and obviously you're also able to run away from the character, and it will follow you because there's a dynamic nav mesh finding, and it will also try to evade you as you do that. So with that all done, I can save this whole scene. And saving Creative doesn't happen locally on the device itself. Instead, it saves to the server and then loads everything to RAM, to the memory of the device you're on. So this allows you to start developing on one device and then switch to a different PC or a different platform entirely and continue editing the same project. So cross-platform development, not just cross-platform play. So with that done, I'll go back to my levels menu. And here I'm going to uh, control. Basically, with the same notion, I can start adding the remaining levels and then connect them together using the action list that we saw. But now I can go to user interface, for example, and here I'm able to choose the menu settings. So for branding, I can control the product logo, the name, the developer logo, the backgrounds, the music types, the colors, and the general theme for my game, and then the fonts as well. Under socials, I'm able to add different social media channels, and under credits, I can add titles. So it's going to be executive producer and enter a name. And with that, I can click on, obviously I can also add textures, so logos for entities, for example. So now if I click preview, this is what the end player is going to see when they launch my game. So here's the made with Creative, here's the company, your company name in this case, here's the mandatory epilepsy warning that you usually see on console titles, here's the title screen, the name of the product, the background, press any key to continue. And then here we have start, options, and credits. So I can click on credits, for example, and you'll see the credit screen that I added. So here's the name with the priority background. And if you go to options, you have accessibility features, control, keyboard and mouse, audio, and even graphics. And when graphics, you have different upscalers, DLSS, etc. And then the video setting and the options that you expect to see. And you are basically, so now you can go back to the previous menu. And here, the final step is publishing. So with publishing, you're able to add, to click on publish and then add multiple submissions. Each submission can be an update. So click on new submission. You choose the category that your game belongs under. So let's say it's a story rich, exploration, hack and slash. And then you type the description, the features, the YouTube URL if you have a video trailer for your game, and then you upload the screenshots, and then you confirm that you own or have written permission for the content in the game. So if you use your own models, make sure that you're following kind of the copyright rules and using the content that you have permission to use. And with that, you're able to publish, and you're going to be asked to select the visibility for the product. So the visibility can be things like, for example, is it unlisted, kind of like similar to when you upload something to YouTube. So nobody except the people with the link will be able to view it. There is a private with code, so only people who have a specific password that you set will be able to open your product. This can be used for things like press or investors. And then there's coming soon if you want to show the page on the Discover store, but not the actual product. And finally, there is public that will give you a URL that you can use and share with others. So now that the game is published, I'll go back to the home screen. And here you can see we saw the develop part. The discover part is where other people come to find your game. So here you can see on top we have the different categories that we saw in the beginning, and you can choose any of them. Under each of them there's a featured section, which is what we have. There's the ability to see different popular, most anticipated, coming soon, etc. There's a search functionality. There's a coin system where you buy coin packs, and through these coin packs you're able to buy products on the store. So the developer will get those coins, and then that will be deducted from your account as a player. And here you can activate if you have a specific code, and you can have your own wish list. So if you click on a product, here you can see the features, screenshots, and videos. As a user, you can share this with others, and this is where you have the URL. And there's the ability to gift, report, and refund. And if you click launch, we see the menu that we saw earlier. And if you click on library, you see the items that you purchased as a player that you have entitlement to in the library. Now, The Discover Store will also have a web version of the same thing. So with the web version, even people without access to Creative itself, the app, they will still be able to view your listing, and then they can download the Creative app in order to play your game. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. This has been a deep dive into how we take a game from an idea to a final published product with Creative.